there are two things I want to say today. The first thing is this: the Land Development Agency bill has not yet been seen in these houses, and it is a matter of, I think, considerable worry to many, many people that this body was claimed to have been established, even though the legislation for its existence has not yet been passed. And I want to just remark on one thing, that all around me, as I travel through this city every day, I see student residence buildings running up very rapidly. I see hotels being built everywhere. But I've no doubt that tax incentives lie behind the student accommodation boom. But there seems to be little or nothing happening in the city centre in respect of building living accommodation for ordinary people who want to live and work in the city. And I'm not making a partisan point through the chair. I want the leader to know that I'm not trying to score any points. I am merely saying that we just must have this dealt with as an emergency. Homelessness is an emergency. High rents are an emergency. The amount of money that is being poured into inflated rents through HAP to landlords' pockets is an emergency issue. The shortage of decent accommodation is an emergency, and I think it should be dealt with as an emergency. And I really would ask the government, ask the leader to ask the minister to come in here and have a reasonable discussion with us as to when we can envisage this legislation being brought through the Houses and how this agency will actually deal with the matter. The market does not work and has never worked in building any city anywhere in the world. The market has never worked. And I mean, anybody who's and I think the Custom House should be aware of this fact. You cannot rely on the market. No great city was ever built by market forces alone, and no housing crisis of the kind we have is going to be dealt with by the market alone. And that's a different matter. The second thing I just want to say in respect of Senator Swanwick's remarks in relation to the EU and where it's going at the moment is this, that I think there's very little that the Irish government can be seen to do at this stage without opening itself up to the accusation of interfering in English domestic politics. But if you look at the Theresa May deal and if you look at the Boris Johnson deal, nobody should be under any illusion but that trade between Northern Ireland and Great Britain is going to be adversely affected by the measures that are proposed. And I'm not relying on my own instinct in relation to that. I have been listening to British radio, BBC, and some of their economic and industrial and organisations, business organisations, are expressing concerns about that. And therefore, I just want to put it on the record that whereas some people in Ireland may think this is the DUP getting its just desserts, in fact, if you do, like I think we all do in our hearts, want Northern Ireland to prosper, because without prosperity there will be very little chance of reconciliation, we should recognise that the so-called compromise worked out is in fact worse for Northern Ireland than the original deal to which the DUP opposed and which they brought down by their alliance with the European Research Group. I just want to put it on the record that it isn't as if the new arrangements for Northern Ireland are good for the North. They're not good for the North. And the DUP must share part of the blame for it, but we should recognise the truth that this is not an ideal outcome.
Senator.